Just a riff. Beautiful.
True.
All right. And we are live. Welcome to the Hedonistic Way at Midday Show. I am Renee Main, and this epic human is unearthing a village of grounded creatives in a way that has never been obtainable for them before. She is a dark mystic who can see beyond the stigma of what is real and what is not. She sees you in a way where she captures your greatness and anchors you into a reality so you can do the work that you crave to do. She unfurls each client so they are a living, breathing canvas of their cosmic self. There is nothing that she can't do. And like a true mystic, she weaves her magic into everything she touches. She is a constant stream of nourishment and living a legacy for ancient and giving you a new breath to ensure that you have the profit and pleasure of making it long lasting. She is a CEO, a branding creatrix, a seer, and a mystic. It is my great honor to welcome Caitlin Rose Taylor to the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I can't even believe how incredible that introduction was. Like, I don't think anyone's really captured me in that way before. Like, I feel like you've pulled lots of bits from my social media and just put it into that. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for having me on the show too.
You're welcome. I've been watching you, and you're been dancing around my realm and my sphere. And I was just right, okay, that's it. It's time to reach out. Because I feel like you've just, and maybe unearthing or unearthed is, a really beautiful way to describe that. Because I feel like you've just entered into a new realm of possibility, and you're creating something that is giving people an avenue to actually create something long lasting. And, often that's fleeting in the creative's mind. It's these, we get these snippets of greatness, we get these snippets of money, of pleasure, of all of these things, and yet you're bringing it into a way that is long lasting. So I really want to ask you about, I can feel 20,000 questions formulating into one, but I'm going to try and dissect it. What was the moment where you went from having your finger in so many pies to entering something into that is sustainable and long lasting?
Oh, good question. I think like many of us when we first start our spiritual journey, it is a matter of not really knowing what's ahead, and still don't really know what's ahead, but trusting that as well is part of it all. But I think that I tried so many things, and for me the biggest shift was connecting with my body, doing embodiment work and listening to the wisdom of my body instead of listening to the outside world or doing what I think I should be doing, or trying to, I've done my Reiki, I've done shamanic training, I've done psychic development, I've done all of that stuff, I've done photography, and I've weaved all of that in. And then it kind of just towards the end of last year, there was a build up of events that kind of just solidified how it all connects, if that makes sense. It became not so random, and it all became oh, that's why I've done this, that's why I've done this. And it kind of, all of my learnings over the 3 years came together into one. And I think now that I have that connection to myself on such a deep level, but also connection to my business in a shamanic way, I trust that I have access to everything that I need within. I think that's been the biggest shift for me. And I know that I'm always going to be supported in that, and it's going to change. I'm going through a massive death and rebirth right now, obviously, I have a Scorpio moon, and it's a Scorpio full moon tonight. So I'm going through a massive death again, an identity crisis, all of that. But I trust now. That's the difference between me, even 6 months ago, is that I know that I'm supported in all of this, and I have access to whatever I need.
I think that knowing is such a profound moment, and there's so many things that's alive in me right now. And that is because I don't know about you, but you realize that you don't know what's coming, but yet you can be but we wait and we hold on for this thing that is never going to arrive. So I think that surrender in what you're saying is so important, and just that, then once you do that, it opens you up to so much. It's such a bigger, more vast, infinite space.
Totally.
I did want to ask you, you mentioned about, what does it mean to be, I think you said aligned, like in, like shamanically speaking, in your business, with your business. What does that mean?
Yeah. So to me, like, I'm just going to say my version
Yeah.
of what that means. To me, that means that like my business is separate to me. I'm just a vessel for it. So like, yes, I've gone through all of the things to like prepare me for this, but I see the energy of, or like the entity of my business as something separate to me. So you can see behind me, I have 2 altars. Like, that to me is how I land the energy of my business, and I communicate it in different ways, like quite regularly throughout the week. So instead of me trying to like figure out what I'm doing from here, I'm like dropping into this space within me that has a connection with these entities, and I'm asking how it wants me to show up or what it wants me to do. And that's where the sustainability kind of comes from for me, because I'm not relying on anything outside of myself. And it's so interesting. I had this huge realization this morning, because I've decided that I don't want to go to psychics anymore, because the time, and this is not about anyone personally, the times that I have gone for a period of like 6 months or so, they kept telling me that I need to be doing art. I'm an artist. And like, I kind of held on to that in a way as an identity that was something that I was working towards. And now I've kind of realized that like, yes, I am an artist. I think we're all artists, but it's not something that needs to be like obtained in a way, if that makes sense. So yeah, I just want to come back to self and back to the business instead of like seeking it externally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is such, so I'm trained as a 3rd level priestess at the Institute for Intuitive Intelligence, and something that that we learn and speak to all the time is that we can only assess and read what's in the field and available to us, but as long as we've got free will, that's changing. Like, that reality is changing, and yet we hang on to some of these, and it's not honoring the just how fluid we are in our evolution. So I really honor that, like that part that you speak to. If someone was to like go, how do I discover what the energy and entity is of my business, and how do I make sure I'm aligned to it? Like, what do they even do?
So I would suggest the altar would be the starting point. That was the starting point for me. And putting like connecting with it while you're creating it, like asking it, like, and it might feel foreign to start with. It's just like, who am I talking to?
Yeah.
So it's like setting up, like asking it what it wants to have on there, or even like you can even just make it what you want to have on there, but it's going to be things that like help you connect to that. You can also, one of the girls in my team also creates a playlist that you can you can connect to it, because people connect to things in different ways. So it's like a playlist might work better for you to like put songs in there that really connects to that frequency. Another way is to do aspecting. So like literally, I'm sure you're familiar with this, but I'll explain it. Putting like a pillow or something in front of yourself, and you can do this with literally anything, and like pulling that energy of whatever it is that you're wanting to communicate with. So in this instance, it's the business. It's like putting that in front of you and speaking to it like it's something that's separate to you. I've kind of done a bit of all of this, and now I just have this space in me that I can like access whenever I want. Another way is conscious journaling. Actually, this one I've just started to do. So I would write like whatever my business name is that I'm communicating with, and I would write like it in a way that it's speaking, and I'd start writing a sentence, and then I let the pen kind of take over. It's really trippy, and my writing always looks really different to when it's me and when it's not me. So that's like, yeah, it's just kind of finding whatever works for you best.
Yeah, I love that. And that's you give, what I love about that is like you give options to people no matter how they receive their information, you know. So however they cultivate that space within, whether it's through, you know, the written word, whether it's through, you know, whether it's auditory, like, you know, all of these different flavors, or visually, you know, in front of them. So so I love that. Why, I want to ask you about like the, how do we I'm just going to trust what I ask. I can feel myself judging my question. You know, you talk about, you know, so ultimately, like, you're anchoring this energy, this entity, and you're creating this energy and this entity. How do you anchor something that you can't actually touch?
I think that, and it's funny because I feel like I've only really got that recently for me, and I think that it's been a consistently communicating and trusting, and I guess seeing that show, like, play out externally in one way or another, whether you've had like a new business, like a new thing that's actually landed, or you've filled a program, or you've set this goal and you've got it, you know, like some kind of goal that you've attained in a way, and you've got that like external, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for, like verification that it's actually working, like, because the mind does need that, you know, like we can't all just operate from this like mysterious realm. And I think that in that, and then also me having the realization that nothing is outside of myself, and really trusting that, it's like, it was the weirdest feeling. It was like all of that just like came into one and landed like right inside here, which is like what I would call the soul space. And it's the space that I've been accessing below the mind for a while, but I hadn't had it inside of me, if that makes sense. I was still seeing it as something that was outside of myself. So I think that it's just leaning into it and communicating and trusting, and then it'll just kind of happen.
I love that. And that's, you know, when you speak to that, I just get this sense of, you know, it's a reclaiming of power, you know, and taking what, you know, feels, you know, it feels unobtainable. You know, I think as an artist, as a creator, as an entrepreneur, like, so much of what we're trying to create feels short-lived and completely unobtainable. So what I love what you speak to is that anchoring it into your own sovereignty and agency. You know, I think that is really powerful, and seeing it as an entity and an energy of your service and your offering to the world. You know, it gives us the ability to just, I don't know, like, have some fun with it and play with it as well, right? Like,
Totally.
yeah. So how would you, if you wanted to, like, you know, so you're connecting with your altars and you wanted to call in a certain creation, what would you do to make that happen?
So there's like two parts to this. Like, I feel like there's divine timing and things can't be rushed. Like, for example, a year ago, my best friend and I, we've already done business together before, but we had this idea come through, and I was just like, that does not feel alive right now. It feels like it's a possibility, but it's not alive right now. And it came through like last week, because we've both, you know, like, we've both gone through what we needed to, and I've got what I need to be able to bring to that now. So it's like, there is, I think that we can still call in clarity and call in offerings, but it's just like also trusting that it will come through when it needs to. Like, for example, yesterday I had like fully a human day and was just like in my emotion all day, and just let myself be in that. and I didn't even have the intention of like I was seeking clarity, I guess subconsciously, but I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Those days where you just literally question everything. Yeah. And then this morning I've woken up and it's just landed. And I believe that a lot of that is because I was clearing keeping my channel clear. I was feeling my emotions. So if you were to like want to sit down and like actually like call something in, I would go through the chakras and do like an emotional clear on it, or do some kind of express and release with the emotional release tools. And then the clarity kind of comes in because we're blocking it. Like it might be subconscious, but we're actually blocking it. So it's like intention, clearing, and then intention would be mine. Even if it's just going for a hike, that happens for me sometimes. If I'm trying to figure it out still, I'm like, how can I get back in my body and shift this? And then it will just come straight through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I often find that sometimes we get so wrapped around in the, oh my God, I'm feeling blocked. I'm feeling, like I can't be bothered. Why am I doing? But I really need to do this. Like we're so wrapped up in all the crap that's around it that is, if we just like surrender to it, it can happen really quickly or not. But yeah, I feel like that's a big one. And so, just like, so what's alive in me when you say that is, I think about, I reflect back, I've done so many joint ventures and so many collaborations over the last 14 years, and most of them have just fallen on their ass because I think as an intuitive, whether you identify or call yourself an intuitive or not, or you get the hunch, you get the pull, you get the desire, or you get excited by the possibility, and you're going, yeah, let's just make this happen, and let's just make this happen now. And then it just falls on its ass because it's not ready. And, and it's not the divine timing. And I think that is probably something that a lot of people probably get caught up in, is that not honoring the divine timing, getting swept up in the excitement. So let me ask you this then, is with that, how do you know if something is, you feel the energy's alive, right? You feel the possibility, you see the possibility. How do you know if it's for now or for later?
Good question. I think that I just also have that inner knowing whether it is for now or later. I think I think you get the download and then you tune into whether I guess there's kind of like a little bit of a mapping out in your mind of what this might look like. And then for me, it's like, do I have everything that I need right now to be able to bring this through? And a year ago when I got that download with my friend, I didn't. And I see now why. But I think also like following the aliveness is like super important as well. Like I think when I get downloads, like I said, I will know if it's like, let's get it out right now, it's in the field, it needs to come out, or if it's like something that could be built upon with my skills over the next couple of months, which but also it's like putting things out and trusting that it will all come to you as well. Like I just took over actually 6 months ago, I was in conversations with like all these different people around collaborations and like doing things with them, and I was like, it's not the right time with any of them. And then I took over a company recently, the Dark Empire, and all of those people that I had conversations with, I was like, it's time now, come in. And now I'm like witnessing the unfoldment of all of this. Like they came into the company for like this specific thing, and now I'm seeing the evolution in like all of our geniuses kind of coming together. So it's like, I think it's just a knowing whether it's time or not.
Beautiful.
Which you build up as you go, obviously trusting that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. And it is a muscle. It's that muscle of trust, right? And it's so important. And I think that we ignore those whispers so many times. Speaking of the Dark Empire, it is your new baby.
Yes.
Like, what do you see happening? What is the aliveness in you for it, and why did you buy it? Like, why did you become the CEO? So
lots of questions in there. So I kind of went on this, I'll just tell you kind of how I got here with like that specifically. So I did shamanic initiation journey last year into the Muneki rites. I then did psychic development training with a mentor for a while to like really tap into that. I fell into branding. I love telling this story because this is just fully the trusting of the unknown when you don't know what's going on. I was doing photography and then COVID happened and obviously no one needed photos anymore. So I sort of started to pivot. I started a company, a business with two of my good friends called The Heart of Intimacy, and we were doing like women's tantric embodiment workshops, and we wrote a course and all of that. But I kind of was still going through that myself. I wasn't really fully embodied in the work enough to be like teaching it. But what I realized is that I was the one that was connecting to the business and pulling everything through. So like all the branding, all of the back end, like I was sort of like the masculine pillar in the business. And then in one day, I had 4 friends reach out and ask me to do their branding. And I was like, I don't know how to do branding, but I can't ignore the fact that I've had 4 people in my field ask me. And so I was like, I'm going to figure it out. And so I went on this like 6-month-long journey of like teaching myself basically. Like I've done at uni when I studied photography, I did like lots of creative elements in graphic design and all of that. So I did have a little bit of a background in it, but as far as like branding for spiritual businesses, like that wasn't anything I knew about. So I kind of taught myself, and then it was about October last year, I was like, I need to leave the business with the girls. I just had that inner knowing, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I feel like I've fulfilled what I needed to do here. A week later, I saw a post from someone who owned the Dark Empire, and she was looking for designers to do an apprenticeship for 3 months. And so I ended up getting accepted into that. I've then been doing another like I've kind of been working with her for like 6 to 8 months already, doing like shamanic training in, I guess you would call it the mystery. I'm still getting mentored by her right now. And then it was like we did a clearing. That's what it was. We did like a clearing of the chakras in a session. And then she's just like got us to speak out our visions. And I was like, I want to have a branding agency, which kind of came out of nowhere for me as well. I was like, oh, okay. And then she spoke to me after and was like, look, I'm feeling into selling this. Like, would this be something that you'd be interested in? And like, it was like I can't do that at the time because I was still very much like, I would say not in my power. Then her and I went on this long journey of like figuring out what this was, you know, like I was just going to be manager, and then she's just like, no, I need to sell it. And it was, it eventually just unfolded like that. So when I had all of these women ask me, like speak to these women about working together, that's when I was a sole trader and was just doing my own branding. So I just didn't have the vehicle to like hold what I wanted to do. But what I've realized is that like I feel like the business had been speaking through me for a while. Like all of these downloads that I'd had 6 months ago that I was like, I can't do this right now, is like what is coming into fruition now, basically. So I bought that in February, I think, and it still feels quite new, obviously. Like I'm still getting used to having a whole team and like managing that and keeping up with everything. But my vision is to basically, which is starting to be like seen now, is to just have this like supportive community. It's women at the moment, but I would like to bring some men into my company at some point. Just that everyone gets to be in their genius, you know, and it's slowly evolving right now into like branding is like going to always be a core part of it, because I feel like it's really important to have this visual expression of like the frequency of your gifts and your business. But I feel like it's evolving into like a lot more right now, which is kind of what I'm going through with this death and rebirth process. So I don't have a lot to share on that right now, but that's kind of like where it's heading.
Amazing. And that's I really love what you spoke to there, and I want to pick up that because I say it to my clients all the time, my interns, is, you know, a lot of like most of your creations, and I would really love your thoughts on this and what speaks to you, is because for me, like what we create has to feel risky. It has to feel edgy, like it has to be a stretch. Otherwise, I feel like it's not the thing for us. Like if it feels safe and comfortable and, you know, and this, it's like, I could do this, but I don't know, like all of that thing, like, you know, I think back to the things that, that I'm doing now, it's all like, it's edgy. It's like, and it's those feelings, as you said, of like, oh my God, can I do this? Like, but it gives us something to grow into. Like, and I kind of at the point now where I question if something feels safe and comfortable, whether that would be the right path that I would choose for myself or recommend to my clients. So I'd love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I love that, because I feel that like, I think all of our like shit comes up basically when we launch something anyway. It's just like, oh, is this gonna be like, are people gonna want this? Like, even though you've had that like feeling of aliveness in your body, and you know that you've got something that can support someone, and you'd like trusting all of that, but I think that it's like normal that everything comes up and you question everything. But I think I agree with that. Like, I feel that there's this space for like growth and initiation for you, because it's like there's always going to be parts, like even if we've been doing this work forever and we're like relatively embodied in it, there's always going to be room for like a little bit more deeper embodiment in that, and that we get to go through. And then I find that by the time you actually start whatever you're doing, you're so fresh in it, so it's just like even more alive for you. It's not something that happened 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you, like, what just came through for me then is that the people that you work with, and making sure that they experience that profit, the pleasure, and anchoring it in, what is like the thing that they don't understand that is available to them?
As in the women that are on my team?
Yeah, team, clients, like, I don't know.
I guess for me, it's like the limitless expansion and the limitless possibilities that are available to them, and all of the women in my team, like, I don't want anyone doing anything that doesn't feel like a full yes to them. Basically, that's like my message. And I'm like, there's so much room for like growth and expansion in this company. Like, I want it, because I really encourage them to stay connected to the entity too. And I was like, this is not just me being called into this is all of you. So I want you to like download new ideas and like really stay in that energy, because I want you to have whatever you want, basically. Like, I want this to be a community that it feels really held and supportive, and we all like cross share our geniuses and all of that. So I guess, yeah, my answer would be, yeah, limitless possibilities and expansion, because it's like, we're conditioned to be in this little box of what's actually possible. But it's like, I've been breaking out of that for like the past few years, and I really want everyone else to experience that. Like, we don't have to live a life that doesn't fully light us up anymore.
Yeah. How do you know the difference between something that doesn't light you up, or like, what do I want to ask? I don't even know what that question is what come up is, because sometimes it's, sometimes you need grit, right? Like, sometimes you need grit, and, you just need that perseverance to keep it going. You need that, consistency and the persistency to going, oh, no, this isn't for me. Like, I actually need to change direction or do something different, or what it is. Like, how do you navigate through that and that knowing?
I mean, I feel like, yeah, I get what you're saying, because it's like sometimes even when I do say yes to something, like a couple of weeks later, it could be a no. So I think for me, it's like, how can you still be in integrity to the client that is in that exchange with you? And like, how can you also be in integrity to yourself? And I think that because integrity is such a big thing for me, like, I really want to keep hold of the agreement that I've made with that person, even if it was a few months ago. I'm like, how can I not see this as being like a job or a task that has to be completed? I try to like find that like joy and excitement in it again. if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like, and obviously I
absolutely.
do creative work at the moment. I've got quite a lot of branding clients personally. I am going to start like coming out of that a little bit and just doing a little bit more one-on-one work, and managing the company obviously. But and so there is stuff that like I have been doing for months that like I have that exact situation happen. So it's like, because I am doing creative work, I'm like, how can I just bring the joy in this and have fun with this and like not make it feel so heavy, I guess, because you can easily fall back into that density.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. And that's something that I think that a lot of people, a lot of people experience. And I find that in the spirituality industry is, there's a real lack of commitment sometimes, like I get that you need to be discerning and set your boundaries. But at the same time, I'm like, if you've committed to something, like show up, like don't pull out at the last minute. Don't like, like there's so many things that I think that happen. It's like, oh, well, I need to just do this. So I feel like there's this space that, that I think that we need to speak to, is because, at the end of the day, it is business. And, we do have to have an exchange of something. So I feel like your words there are really important. How can we hold ourselves in integrity? That's one of my highest values as well. It's so important to me, but also honor ourselves. So
Totally. And I think that like there is this, I'm just going to take the piss for a minute. There is this like, oh, it just doesn't feel aligned anymore. And it's like, you've committed to this. And I know that things change, but I'm like, how can you still, like I said before, how can you still honor you and the other client in this? But I think my biggest issue is that half the time people don't communicate that. So you don't actually even know what's going on. And that's where the lack of integrity comes in. It's like, I am human. I understand that stuff changes and you think you're going through constant evolving into different things and what you want to be doing and all of that, but it's like, but still standing in that is like super important to me, no matter how many deaths I'm going through, like
and that, I love that. And so let me just pick up on that, is like, no matter how many deaths you're going through, because that's huge, right? Like, no matter how many deaths we're going through, how do you have the energy and how do you cultivate that space to still show up?
Yeah, totally. And like truthfully, like I am still figuring that out, because it like I have personally have a lot of Scorpio in my chart. So like going through these constant deaths and rebirths is quite regular for me. So I think that like in that, okay, so yesterday, prime example, I had like 3 client calls booked in, and I was like, how can I still honor them and their time and their needs, but also honor my own? So like I think I moved 1 or 2 of them to later in the week, and then I still showed up for one of them, but I was just honest with where I was at. I'm not going to hide that I'm in it. Like even my team call yesterday, I started crying 2 minutes before the team call, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to show up in this. Like this, I'm just going to be real with where I'm at. And then obviously like I have it out, I'd be seen in that, and then I just get on with it, but I think that, it's like just communicating and like making the space where you can, like there is always ways around it. It's like if you need a day in bed, you need a day in bed, but you can't just like let people down. If I had to show up for something like a live training or something, there probably would be an element in me that would still show up, but I'd spend the whole day giving myself space to be able to show up for that.
I agree. Like I really feel the same, and I feel like this has become a real shadow in in this space a lot of the time. It's like it's, if you commit to showing up, like I get that, if your kid's sick, you're sick, like shit happens, but seriously, like if you commit to something, show up. Like and just do whatever it is. But what I really loved about what you just said is, in that yesterday you showed up and And then because I kind of think, well, okay, is it only because we have these feelings because it's like I can't be seen if I'm feeling less than,
Yes. Yeah.
you
People
know?
like so attached to needing to feel good all the time. And I did a post on this earlier because I was like, I'm actually done trying to pretend that I have it all together,
Yeah,
because I don't, I
yeah,
really don't. And like, I have been hiding from not showing up when I'm
yeah,
like not feeling great, and it's like, I'm just done with that now. Like,
yeah,
everyone has these identities online that they hide behind. And I'm like,
yeah,
and I've been doing it too, which is why I'm
yeah,
calling myself out on it. I'm just like, it's not all friggin' rainbows and butterflies half the time. Like, most of the time it's not. So
yeah,
it's like, how can we just like honor our humanness in all of this
yeah, yeah,
as well?
exactly. And giving yourself to permission to be seen in that. And here's the
Yeah.
thing is like, I think, when you show up or any of us show up in that meeting where you're going, you know what, like, yeah, I cried 2 minutes before the call, or I'm feeling really whatever right now. And to be allowing ourselves to be seen in that, knowing that it
Mm,
doesn't make us weak or
yes.
stupid or unworthy or whatever, I think it creates a more honest space and a
Yeah,
more honest creation.
totally. Yeah, because people feel like they can be real with you and not like
Yeah,
run away from you because they're scared of how you're going to react if they're in their shit and they
yeah,
can't show up. It's just like, yeah, we're all human. We're all going through the same stuff, but not everyone speaks about it, I don't think. And
yeah,
I've been in situations where like my mentor, I haven't felt that is super approachable. And
yeah,
so I have like not showed up in that, it's like it works both ways.
yeah,
I want people to feel like they can tell me where they're at honestly and
yeah,
truthfully.
absolutely. And I think that I've experienced that a lot, like even before I was, very much I'm now in the spirituality and sexuality space, but before that I was in business mentoring and more personal development. And so many people would be like, so many of my clients would be scared before our session because they were like afraid to tell me this thing,
Mm,
or they would cancel at the last minute or whatever it is because it's like, oh well, I haven't done what I was supposed to do, or I said I was going to do. And but I would say to them all the time, like, that's not when you hide, that's when you need to show up. That is when
mm,
you need to show up, because I'm not putting any judgment on you. That's your own stuff.
yeah,
Like, that's
yeah,
when you need support more, right?
I love
So
that.
many of us, we feel like we need to hide. And I
Yes.
just think that that's not conducive to how we feel, how we want to feel, and what we want to create, and who
Mm,
we want to be in this life, you know?
mm. Totally. I've been that person before, if I'm being honest. I've
Yeah,
been the person that hasn't showed up on the call to my mentor because I've felt shit that I haven't done this, or I'm scared to see for them to see where I'm at. And that's what even happened yesterday on the call. I was like, I don't want my team to think that I'm a shit leader or a shit
yeah,
boss because
yeah,
I'm crying, And it's like,
yeah,
where does that even come from?
yeah,
Where is this conditioning? Like, I know where it comes from, but
yeah,
it's just like, it's so sad that we feel like we're not enough to, like, if we show up in that, we're not enough.
yeah. It's crazy. It's just, it's just, and you just think, like most workplaces, most business, most companies, like they adhere to this system.
Yeah.
It's so fucked up. It's just ridiculous. And I really do think that, it is the cause of so much of the chaos that we see
Mm,
and the unhappiness that people feel. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I really wanted to ask you about this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is when you speak about the dark empire and the vision that you're creating, I get a real sense that you're creating this empire that is purely based on a non-hierarchical model,
yes.
right?
100%.
So I was having on a clubhouse last night, and we're talking about disrupting the hierarchical model. And in that, it was a really interesting journey. And, there's lots of models out there that are coming, becoming much more available and speaking about this non-hierarchical model. A lot of them, like, I feel like, and maybe it's just me, but I feel like a lot of these come from academics that talk about it in a way and use language in a way where it feels too hard.
Mm.
And it doesn't feel obtainable, because you go, where the fuck do I start with this? So I'm curious to know is, how have you gone about creating this non-hierarchical model within the Dark Empire?
Um, I think it's just happened organically with who I am, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
came in and I just straight away was like, I don't want you guys to feel like you aren't in this with me. Like
Yeah.
I want, if like I said before, if you guys have ideas, I
Yeah.
want you to come to me. Like obviously
Yeah.
I'm the one, like I don't want to say I'm at the top. Like obviously I am running the company, so there is a
Yeah.
certain level of like me having to call the
Yeah.
shots on stuff and all of that. But I wanted it to be like a collaborative thing. Like on the meeting yesterday, it's like, yeah, I am a channel for this and I download what it needs to happen with all of that. But I'm also open to other people's downloads. Like yesterday, I had this idea come through on Friday and I was like, I'd love to hear what you guys get from this. This is
Mm.
not just about me, because obviously they're involved in it all too. So like I open that space up. So I don't think it's really been me being like, right, this is not going to be a hierarchical model. It's just like fluidly happened and evolved in that, because, and also half the girls in the team have been on the journey with me. They were in the apprenticeship with me. So like we all know each other quite intimately. And I was like, just me starting to be like, just want to be honest with you and share where I'm at or whatever's coming up for me. That then allows them to meet me in that as well. And that's just like the flow on effect.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And that's something that, like, that kind of by the end of last night in the room and talking about it, I really felt like, with the hierarchy, I feel like there's what become very apparent to me is the hierarchy is different to the patriarch.
Mm,
It's a different model, it's a different system. And I don't feel like, I think practically, we need a CEO.
yeah.
Like, we need someone to make a decision. Otherwise, sometimes, like, it can be a lot of red tape, and because no one can actually make a decision. So
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with someone, making that final decision, but or a hierarchy, so to speak. But it's that space that you're cultivating, that you speak to, that you're bringing in, that I find really beautiful. And
Mm.
I feel like it's, if we want to have a healthy relationship with ourselves and others and our service, I feel like this is the only way forward.
Totally. And it's like, can you imagine what's possible in these spaces if
Yeah.
everyone's actually on the same page and has the same vision and no one is right or wrong?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm already seeing that with, like, I can see it shifting in all of the women. It's like, we can literally create anything that we want in this. And like, we, like right now, the meeting yesterday, like some of the women have their own business and some of the girls are going to do branding for them, and it's just like, wow, like this is what it gets to be like, and like what else is possible from this place. Like I'm intrigued too, because this is obviously the first time I've been in a company like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, I don't really like to use this term too much, but I guess it is like a new earth business in a way.
Yeah. It is. It really is. And just hearing you speak about it, like, I feel myself get emotional. Like, I feel tears, because it just gives me hope and
Mm,
possibility, and I really want to honor you in that, for making this possible, and for
mm,
trusting that nudge, and for, and for becoming the CEO of the Dark Empire, and in a lot of ways, you're really at the cutting edge of what's possible in this business, in where we respect all people. So
thank you. Thank you for
yeah.
seeing that in
Oh,
what I'm
I
doing.
love it. Yeah, it's so beautiful. So I want to ask you, before we begin to wrap up, I want to ask you, what is turning you on? right now?
I think after this conversation, what's turning me on is like the endless possibilities that are available to us in life, and how we like really don't actually have to like work for anyone and be told what to do anymore, or like doing shit that we don't find that brings us joy or pleasure or abundance, you know? Like, I think it's just like the limitless possibilities in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
If someone was circling around going, I feel creative, I feel like I'm capable of, of this life, I'm capable of doing this thing, of being a part of something great, like, I want to do something, I just don't know what it is, or, or I don't know how to anchor it in reality. I find that's a lot of the times, like, you spoke before about, you had multiple different threads. I feel like that is, oh, and I'll be interested in, sorry, I can fear another question coming through. So is, I feel like there's a lot of creatives that have this, they don't know how to anchor it in or pick one thing or how to weave them together. So there's that question, but I also have another question.
Okay.
Is I kind of feel like we are at a time right now where all these threads, all those things that you did in the past that you had no idea why you did, but it's all beginning to make sense and come into this union right now. I do believe that. So
totally.
Yeah.
And I think that my answer with that, firstly, would be like, trust where you are and not feel like you need to be any further than you are. Because that's what I was doing when I was following the silver thread as to what was coming into my field and what I felt like my intuition was telling me to do, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But I felt like I needed to be further along than I was. That's like my first advice for people, is like, this has been a 3-year journey for me to get to where I am. It hasn't just happened. And it was a case of like moving to London for 2 years, even though I didn't know what the hell I was doing there. And then I had my awakening there, and then it was coming back, and then moving to the Sunshine Coast, and then meeting my best friend Sarah, and then doing learning tantra and embodiment work. And that in itself is like been the key thing for me, is like descending into the body and clearing all of the blocks. But I think it's like trusting your intuition on where it's taking you and who you're drawn to, you know? Like, all of my mentors have been like, one of them didn't know anything about her, hadn't even been following her journey at all. I spoke to a friend and was like, I'm feeling like I need to work with this woman. And she was just like, oh, I thought you already were. Like, she'd already like downloaded that for me. We look up, there was a street in front of us with that woman's name. I was, like, it's just been all of these synchronicities that have like led me to here. And like, half the time I've not known how I'd get the money, or not knowing what the hell I'm doing, or not knowing why I'm doing it. And it's like just literally following the silver threads, because that has been the main reason I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I think that is so true, is, we're often so focused on this vision or this idea of this thing that we feel like we want to create, that we don't actually just melt into that silver thread and listen to that and be with that silver thread as it is, like, not looking for the next one and the next one and the next one. So
totally easier said than done sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the feeling of like, not like, of being incomplete, right?
Yes.
Is because you constantly feel like something's missing.
Yes.
So
that's the looking outside of yourself too.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I love that. I love it. So I want to ask you, if anyone's going, I'm loving how this chick jams and how she rolls, how do they work with you? What are you offering? What is this team that you speak of so vibrantly, and how can they come and hang out with you more?
Awesome. So the Dark Empire, where at the moment our offerings are really all around like helping people get clarity on like what they're doing, looking at their charts, their astrology charts, gene keys, all of that, like kind of just like really anchoring in the vision and clearing the blocks around that. So we have sessions that are for that specifically.
Yeah.
And then we have like a whole bunch of branding like packages. We have like rebirth packages for startup businesses or like businesses that want to rebirth. We also have copywriting for social media and websites. And we also have website build outs as well, and DIY website courses if people wanted to learn how to do it themselves. On top of all of that, I'm running a 4-day masterclass series next week. So it's called the Essence Activation Masterclass. So it's going to be going over 4 days. It's going to be done in a private Zoom group and in a portal, so people will have access to the replays. So I'm going to be kind of sharing like our process on how we actually download these brands and clear the blocks and like learn how to use Canva just to do basic like design, and then also like how to connect to the business and like give it a voice in like how you share it. So it's a pretty epic like 4 days, to be honest. I'm just like giving a little bit of each of what we do so people can then go and do it themselves. If anyone is actually wanting to learn how to do the branding and become a part of the team, I'm offering a 6-month mentorship starting on the 17th of May, which will go all year. And so that's going to be like a deep dive into learning like deeply how we do it and how we anchor this in, and then how we channel the brands from that place. So there'll be like kind of half getting to know self and like anchoring this in, and then the other half will be all creative and technology support, and then there's an opportunity at the end to come in the company.
Cool. That's cool. And that's like, you can't enter into the mystery without fully knowing self, right? Like
that's been like the whole of the last 3 years before I've gotten to here, and being able to do it for other people too is like a little bit of a challenge that you need to learn.
Absolutely, it really is. I love that. And thank you for being on the show. Thank you for all that you offer and all that you do. I really, it's been really exciting to watch you do your thing, and just this unfurling has been really beautiful. And I'm probably one of those quiet watchers really of you, but it has been beautiful. And I just want to say I do see you, and I feel really excited for you and the possibility of everything that you're creating. So
thank you so much.
Thank you for leading the way.
Receiving it all. Thank you so much for having me on the show too.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. All right, and everybody else, I will see you next week back on the show. Bye, everybody.